We know that our recordings aren't going to be perfect. There are things that we're going to need to trim. And so I want to talk about cuts and splits and what's the difference between the two. Well, looking here in my timeline, I see that at the beginning, I'm not doing a whole bunch. I'm looking over my papers, I'm doing some review, and then right here is when I'm ready to record, very soon. There we go. So right here, that's where I want to start things. All right, so I need to get rid of this stuff at the beginning of the recording. How do I do that? All right, well, let's talk about these two things. Splits, you can see here's the split key, and that's with S, and then here's the cut that is Control X. All right, a split is just going to make one break in my media, whereas cut will actually remove media. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by that. So you can see here again, I have these 3 tracks, and I want to make a split right here on, let's say, this first track. So I will click on that track, and I can hit the S key on my keyboard, or I'll just hit split. Now notice that it wasn't available before. When I don't have any media selected, there's nothing to split. It doesn't know what to split. So I'm going to say, take this camera track and split it. And so now what it's done is it's made 2 separate clips. It's broken this one clip into 2. And now I can take this clip and I can delete it. And I can use the delete key on my keyboard to do that. Okay, so that's a split. Let's look at the difference now between that and a cut. Now, if I go here to this track and I say, I want to make a cut, it cut the whole track. Well, that's not at all what I wanted. So let me undo that quickly. We'll talk more about undo in a later lesson. But I want to cut. I just wanted to make a break. Oh, Ron said a cut is to delete sections of the track. Okay, so now I can use these handles on either side of the playhead. These you can grab. So watch me grab the green, and as I drag it to the left, it makes a selection here. And I can drag the red to the right, and that makes a selection also. Okay, now I don't need to do that. I'm just going to double click this track to go to the beginning. There's a little tip for you to go to the beginning of that track. And I'm going to grab this green handle, and I'm going to drag it all the way to the left. And I say, everything that I have on the timeline that comes before this point, I want it to be removed. I want it to be deleted. So now when I click cut, notice it kept all of my tracks there. I didn't delete, I didn't lose all of those tracks. I just lost the media that was there. All right, so let me show you that again. I can go here and I see that there's a section of silence. So I can highlight this section of silence, and I can say cut, or I'll use Control X this time. So Control X, and it cuts it out. All right, I see another section here that I don't need. Let me show you another way to do this. Now, if I highlight this, I'll use the delete key this time instead of cut. Now, when I use delete, notice how that's a little bit different. When I used cut, it brought the 2 together. When I used delete, it left this blank space. So it depends on what you want to have done to your tracks. Most of the time, I use Control X. I don't need to have this gap in time, because otherwise people are watching me, they're listening to me, and then it just goes black for a second, and then the video comes back in. And that's not what we want. All right, so I wanted to show you, make sure when you have something selected like that, that when you use delete, it will just delete everything here, but leave everything in time, as opposed to using cut, which takes that out and removes any time that's there. Now, another thing I can do is I can put a split through all of my tracks at once. So here you can see I don't have any tracks selected. In fact, I can't do a split. But if I know this is the end of my video and I want to stop it here, I can split all of these tracks at once by doing a Control-Shift-S. And then that puts a cut down through each track, no matter if it was selected or not. And so now each of these is its own separate one. I don't need any of them. I can grab it, delete, grab it, delete, grab it, delete. Now, there's a more effective way of selecting clips, and so what I'll do is I will undo those deletes and show you in the next video a more efficient way of selecting clips.